Welcome to the June meeting of the MTA Board. I want to welcome the public and my fellow colleagues, including new colleagues on the board. Meeting of the MTA Board, marking both the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising and with World Pride culminating with the Pride March on Sunday. Millions of people were expected. The MTA wants to do everything we can to accommodate the millions of people coming to celebrate this historic event. At the MTA, we've been celebrating in many ways throughout our system, including for the first time designing a Pride-specific logo, decorating our trains. You may have seen the logos on the trains. Developing custom Metro cards, here they are, they're collector's items, get them soon, and producing new merchandise for the Transit Museum. 14th Street, the Village, and Chelsea will be particularly busy, so we're pleased to announce that we'll be running regular weekend L service through both tunnels for the entire weekend. During the busiest times, we'll be running an L train every 4 minutes instead of every 20. I should note that the ability to do something like this for a special historic occasion would simply not be possible under a full shutdown, and is yet another huge benefit of the new L project approach. It also wouldn't be possible if the project weren't a month ahead of schedule, thanks to the leadership of Jan Lieber and his team. We're ready for increased ridership with additional service on other subway lines near the freight route. There'll be extra personnel at key stations along the route and additional bus dispatchers to help with changing traffic conditions. We're also coordinating, as we do on special events, very closely with the city and with the NYPD in particular. We've created a special webpage, new.mta.info/Pride 2019. where we'll post more details about the service we're adding, along with any service changes such as detours some buses will make due to street closures. We recommend customers check the website before they head out to Pride-related events this weekend. Second, I'm going to talk about some important legislative events in Albany. As you may know, this year's legislative session
for preferred vendors. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jason Pinero, followed by Bradley Brashears.
Good morning on the Wednesday after my 33rd birthday. I'm going to start off, since that is Pride Month, why not we have a more diverse MTA board? The youngest board member that I know is Veronica Vanderbilt. I could be 33 years old and I could be sitting there with you guys, giving you good ideas, new ideas. But instead, we have people that could be even my grandfather. That's a shame. And Pat Floyd, you know that right now, as we speak, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority is losing approximately $260 million in concept of fare evasion. What are you going to do about it? And please consider the Atlanta ticket that provides service from my home station, Atlanta Terminal Brooklyn, to 10 other stations in Southeast Queens. Make it permanent and consider alternative on the Metro North end. And please, I consider to every single board member to support Andy Byford's Fast Forward plan. It's a necessary plan that could make our subway system in the 21st century. And last but not least, no more fare and toll increases. We found out yesterday that the Port Authority that Pat Floyd was chairman back in the day, they're going to raise their tolls and their fares. So I request that the MTA freezes the fare and toll increases until we get our system up to date. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bradley Brashears, followed by Colin Wright.
Good morning, board members. My name is Bradley Brashears, and I'm the planning manager at the PCAC, speaking on behalf of the New York City Transit Riders Council. We are very happy about the extension of the Atlantic ticket field study, which was generated.
Thank you. Mr. Zuckerman.
I think this will be the last time you have to hear from me today. Mr. Chair, the Bridges and Tunnels Committee met on Monday, and there are no actions to take this month. Thank you very much.
Well done. With that, I'd like to introduce the MTA's new Inspector General, Carolyn Picorni. Mr. Picorni is here to talk about our new role as Inspector General and the focus of our recent work at the MTA.
Thank you so much, Pat. Before I begin, I want to thank my predecessor, Barry Kluger. He has devoted his entire career to public service, and he's been a tremendous help and a true gentleman as I transition into my new role. A word on my background. I am a career federal prosecutor. I have worked at the highest levels of the U.S. Department of Justice, where I had the privilege of serving as Deputy Chief of Staff and Counselor to the Attorney General of the United States, Loretta E. Lynch, and at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn, where I spent close to 15 years prosecuting corrupt public officials, dismantling drug cartels, and rooting out all manner of fraud. I am thrilled to now be leading the Inspector General's office. We are independent of the board and of the MTA. My office investigates MTA waste, fraud, abuse, and deficiencies. We recommend remedial actions and monitor their implementation. And when we uncover evidence of criminality, we work closely with law enforcement partners to see that it is investigated and prosecuted where that's appropriate. I can think of no better use for my talents and my experience than at the MTA. The riders and the taxpayers deserve an IG who has a very serious compliance attitude and the experience, integrity, and the independence to look out for them. I've spent my first month as IG getting to know the MTA leadership, who have very graciously offered their time and support, so thank you for that. And I've been familiarizing myself with the MTA itself. I have visited bus depots, transit facilities, and subway stations in the 5 boroughs, as well as the Long Island Railroad and Metro North facilities in the suburbs. I've inspected operations of these facilities and been hearing directly from workers, supervisors, contractors, and the riders. And I set out to focus on some very basic functions of the MTA. How do things work? How does the MTA do things? How do they clean things? What are the systems that are in place to track employee time and attendance? These are some just very basic things. And so far, what I've seen is both very encouraging in some respects, and in other respects, raises some serious questions in my mind that I will be following up on with my team of career professionals in my office. I've asked for a little assistance operating here. So can you take us to our first slide, please? Thank you. So I've decided to look at drains and cleaning of stations and subway cars. And I did that because over a decade ago in 2006, my office did an outstanding report on what caused service outages, which were massive at the time, and what caused flooding after a rainstorm in the fall of 2004. And so what you see up here on the slide is the cover page of that report. And my office's 2006 report found that 2 things contributed to the flood, among other things. One was badly clogged drains that hadn't been regularly cleaned out for years, and also trash, dirt, and litter getting onto the tracks. In that 2006 report, we recommended that the MTA develop systems to regularly inspect, maintain, and clean the drains and the stations. The next slide, please. So to learn more about the drains, I visited the New York City transit employees who were cleaning drains on the #1 subway tracks near 96th Street on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and that image you see here is of the MTA workers who were cleaning out the drains. It was pretty shocking, actually, to see how badly clogged the drains were, and they had gotten. I don't know if the image does it justice, but these drains were literally filled to the brim, overflowing with several feet of mud, litter, and just plain old gunk. And in speaking with the team that was cleaning out the drains that night, they couldn't tell me the last time that the drains had been cleared. So I want to applaud the Subway Action Plan for clearing most of these drains and doing that very important work over the past 2 years. And my hat's off to the workers. That evening, they happened to be MTA workers. They were doing utterly back-breaking work at 1 o'clock in the morning. They had incredible attitudes and real dedication to getting these drains cleaned. But this did leave me with a lot of questions as to what happened during an entire decade after my office issues a rather scathing report, and the Subway Action Plan 10 years later getting these drains cleared out, most of it with outside contractors and at great expense. So what happened? Why weren't the IG's recommendations followed? Where were the management systems in place to ensure regular inspections and maintenance? Now, the MTA has pledged to have a real maintenance plan going forward. For that, I am very grateful, and I look forward to reviewing that plan and working with the MTA leadership to ensure that we have very robust systems in place when it comes to drains, so that we don't find ourselves back in square one in a few years from now. The next slide, please. Subway station and car cleaning. My team and I visited late night deep cleaning of subway stations that was being done both by outside contractors under the Subway Action Plan, as well as by MTA employees. And the images you see on top are deep cleans of subway stations. I visited the Washington Clinton stop on the AC line in Brooklyn. And the photos on the bottom are from my visit to the Jerome Avenue yard in the Bronx, where I saw contractors getting a deep clean. The image on the bottom left is a worker cleaning the inside of the cars, and the image on the bottom right is the deep clean of the outside of the cars. And this, again, was being done pursuant to the Subway Action Plan. Some of the cleaners told me in both scenarios that they didn't think this kind of deep clean had been done for a good many years, and in the case of the deep cleans of the stations, maybe not in decades. One subway car cleaner described to me finding what he described as 5-year-old gum in subway cars, along with syringes, pills, condoms, and other truly disgusting things that no rider should ever have to find in their subway car on a commute. And as my office's 2006 report spelled out, cleaning isn't just a quality of life issue. It is vital for keeping debris and litter from falling onto the tracks, which can cause subway track fires and service delays. So again, I applaud the Subway Action Plan for taking cleaning seriously and doing these deep cleans. It's excellent and very important work. I hope that the MTA adopts and institutionalizes best practices that are learned from these cleanings. A lot of it was accomplished by using outside contractors, so that we ensure the same level of cleanliness of both the stations and the cars for years to come. Next slide, please. On time and attendance, I think everybody knows that an effective time and attendance system is essential for ensuring that taxpayer money is protected. And it's also vital for instilling public confidence in the MTA. I visited several facilities. I talked to managers and workers about how they keep track of employee time and attendance. These are photos. On the left is a time clock at the Coney Island rail yard, and the image on the right is of a punch card at the Quill Bus Depot in Manhattan. And what I was surprised to learn was that the MTA uses more than a dozen different time and attendance systems across the agency. And what was troubling to me was the widespread lack of management systems to track employee time and attendance. Some facilities had better systems than others. You can take it to the next slide, please. Can you go? Thank you. For example, at the Metro North Croton Harmon Yard, the clocks at least had a security camera above them. That's the image on the right, so that if one needed to verify an employee's time and attendance, you could, if you had to, at least go to a video to see that the employee was there, although that's not ideal. The image on the left is the Hillside Long Island Railroad facility, where actually they've had a biometric clock. You see there an employee demonstrating for me using his fingerprint to clock in, and they've had that since around 2004 or so. Some places are much better than others, but if you could go back, please. Many facilities are still using these very, very decades-old punch card systems, and you see me demonstrating the punch card, how that's done on the right-hand side. And there is no camera in sight, so there's no means independently of verifying the employee's time and attendance. So I believe that the majority of the MTA employees are incredibly hardworking and honest, and one of the best parts about going out and visiting these facilities has actually been meeting the employees, who are to a person so proud, so passionate about their work, and take great pride in working for the MTA. But the times of using these outdated clocks, like the one you see up here now, has to end. I'm very gratified that the MTA is in the process of rolling out biometric clocks to capture employees' time and attendance with their fingerprints. And I look forward to working with the MTA and the board to ensure that these new biometric clocks are installed system-wide in a timely manner. A few other issues before I conclude. If you could go forward, I believe 2 slides. I read the papers every day. There are issues that keep coming up that I believe warrant my office's attention. I've also listened to the comments of the board, not just today, but also at the committee meetings, as well as the comments of the advocates in the public who have spoken before these meetings. And some of those issues clearly warrant my office's attention. When it comes to fare evasion, I look forward to working with the MTA and the board to better track fare evasion and improve preventative measures. Worker safety is also extremely important to me. I personally have been the victim of workplace violence. I know how disturbing it is, not just for the individual employee, but for all of their colleagues and their colleagues at the agency. I've actually had the privilege of speaking with some workers who were assaulted on the job. I am totally amazed at their resiliency in dealing with these crimes committed against them, but they should never be put in that position in the first place. No one should be made to feel unsafe or vulnerable because they work at the MTA, and I look forward to having my office partner with the MTA and our law enforcement colleagues on this issue. My office also has a sophisticated construction investigation team, and they are and will continue to actively look at projects, both large and small, and especially any failings. So there are some important projects happening right now, and we will be monitoring them closely. We've all seen the progress over the past 2 years that the Subway Action Plan has brought about in making the system run better. Our challenge is, how do we together learn from past failures and design the best management systems and controls that institutionalize the lessons learned and do it while protecting New Yorkers from fare and tax increases. Most of all, I want to convey my desire to work in partnership with the board whenever possible, and my entire office stands ready to be a part of bringing about positive and lasting change to the MTA. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
So we're going to start off with a report on World Pride Service, and I'm going to give the podium to Andy Byfield for a minute.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, at the MTA, we're very excited about Pride coming to town, World Pride coming to town. I happen to live in Sydney when World Pride came to Sydney, so I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fantastic. And as the Chairman mentioned today, we have updated our plan. So I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of what we will be doing. The big change is that as a result of updated numbers, customer numbers that we've got from the city, the projected attendance has been increased. And as a result of the fact that we received the good news earlier in the week that the L project is well ahead of schedule, that does mean that we've taken the customer friendly decision to run the L service, train service, the L service, normal weekend service throughout the weekend. So it'll be operating on 4-minute headways. That is in addition to other changes. For example, we'll be running the number 1 train every 6 minutes instead of every 8. C every 8 minutes instead of every 10. We will be running the G at 10 minutes intervals all throughout the weekend. The M line will run every 10 minutes from Metropolitan Avenue to Delaney, Essex. So we're really pushing the boat out on this. We want to do our bit, and we want to put on a really good Pride service. On the buses, we will be making sure with police that we can get our buses through crowded streets. We're paying particular attention to 14th Street. There will be a detour via Houston, but we're working with NYPD and with our colleagues at DOT to keep the buses moving. Our message to customers is, please use transit. It's the best way to go. We have taken that decision to keep the L line running. We want to do our bit. We want to put on a good show for the people of New York and as the Pride participants come to town. So we're ready. We have lots of additional customer service staff. We've got contingency plans well in place, and we're ready to put on a really good show and do our bit for World Pride.